Hello and welcome back to Wireman's Whimsy. We are doing another sketch inspired card today. So this sketch is actually just a rough drawing of one of the sketches on page 22 in the annual catalog. It's got the idea of a piece of designer series paper down the middle, then a graphic with two smaller graphics underneath and one just layered over top. And I just added room for a greeting. And this is how I interpreted it. It's a far cry from where I was going when I started, but this is a angle opening card. And instead of designer series paper, I used the edges, and I used the blending brushes for bubble bath and on the edges, and then soft seafoam in the middle. And I'd like to thank Angela for the inspiration for the colors. She suggested a nice pink in the center, and then a green card base. So there we go. So I've used the die from the Magnolia Mood set, and then used the smaller dies with adhesive backing on the soft seafoam to make the details. So it's a really loose interpretation of having a center graphic and then smaller graphics around the outside and the greeting along the bottom. So let's go ahead. I want to show you how to make the card itself. Super easy to make. So I'm just going to pop that over there. And what we need is a piece of 8.5 by 11, and we're going to score it at 5.5 and then score it again at 4.25. And then we're going to put it in our cutting machine. Let's push some things out of the way, and it won't fit completely. You're just going to line it up as best you can with that cut line, the points of the paper right in that trough, so that when you cut it down, you'll cut all the way down, and then you just take your scissors and you just trim up the corners so that you can take the two pieces of paper apart. So what you end up with is, when you cut it, you end up with a card that you can fold your edges over like that. So what I need to do is I need to take my bone folder and I need to just squish that down. I'm also going to just run it along the edge there because the cutting blade kind of lifted the edge a little bit. And so we're just going to do this, squash that out. And what we have is our card front. So with that being done, what we're going to do next is we are going to color our card front. So we're going to take our bubble bath and we're going to come in on the sides. Actually, I'm going to flip this over and do it this way. We're going to come in on the sides like this and just keep blending it along the edges. You can go as dark or as light as you want. Just flip this around and do the other edge. And then we'll do the middle with the soft seafoam. So you can see, you can start with a super simple like sketch or template for a card. And once you get the image going in your head, it just takes off to something completely different than what you had imagined. So given that this week I was struggling a little bit with creativity and what am I going to do for videos and how am I going to come up with all these ideas, I decided to use the sketches in the catalog as my jumping off points. So that being said, it really kind of lit up the creativity a little bit. Each card that I've made has been very different from how I intended it to start, but they've turned out really well. So move those off to the side. And now we need to cut this on the diagonal as well so that we can put it along the card. So same kind of idea. You need to make sure your corners are in that trough where the blade goes. And then you just bring the blade down. But what I do when I've got a corner like that is I start the blade off the edge and then cut, because sometimes if you put a corner against that trough and run the blade against it, it'll jam, it'll bend that corner. So you don't want that to happen. So it's a bit easier if you start on the paper and cut back and then come forward. Almost similar to sewing. When you start on the fabric, reverse your stitch, and then come back. It stops that needle jamming up at the top. So to put this on now, we are just going to use our adhesive and just flat mount it on. And we're going to line up against that edge, but we're also going to line up similar to how we would be to put a mat on the card. Just line it up against those edges, and I'm off. And of course I went ahead and pushed it down. So I'm just going to very carefully lift this up so that I can swing it around and line it up properly. And I'm just a little bit too far over now. So we're just going to shimmy it right up to that edge and then give it a push. There we go. And we're going to do the same with this piece. So we're going to go ahead, add our adhesive, and we're going to line it up like this, kind of making sure we're kind of even there. And there we go. So there's our card front now. And you can see it kind of matches the sketch where you've got that centerpiece with the side pieces. Now we're going to add our, before we do anything, I'm going to do the greeting. So I'm going to lay this out flat, and I'm going to just stamp the greeting just down here in the corner like that. There we go. And pop that off to the side, and I've done that in basic gray. I wanted it to show up against the background. Now this is going to be attached just to the top piece so that we can actually still open the card. So I'm just going to put some dimensionals just on these upper leaves here. Just like that. And I can use the dimensionals because there's detail cuts, but there's no actual openings. So then I'm just going to put this down where I'd like it to be and give it a bit of a push. And now I put adhesive paper on the back of these, and you can't see them because they're on my surface here. So let's just put them there like that so you can see them. And I just need to determine where I'm going to put my pieces. And I'm going to put this one, the top here, just layer it in like that. And then I'm going to take these ones and layer them in at the bottom. So I can tuck one in like that, and peeling the backing off this one. There we go. Whoops. Just tuck this one in like this. There we go. And then we can add some of these in color shimmer gems. And I chose to use the slightly darker ones, the Petunia Pop, as opposed to the Bubble Bath, because I wanted them to kind of really bring the eye into the center. So I chose to go with that just slightly darker color. And one down there like that. And that is our finished card. It flips open and you've got the space inside to write. You could put designer series paper on the inside too if you wanted to, but it still stands up. So it's not going to fall down. And there you go. So thank you so much for watching, and let's create together again soon.